Next up, Eminem. Yesterday, the legendary rapper announcing big news, sharing some sweet home footage with his daughter, Haley Jade, in the music video for his recent track titled Temporary. Have a look.
Life took a different turn for a young diner owner in the most mind-blowing way. You won't believe what happened to her. Her life changed and was bound to change after one of the greatest and most successful rappers ever entered her little diner. Yeah, you heard it right. The real Slim Shady came out of nowhere.
May I have your attention, please? Will the real Slim Shady please stand up? I repeat, will the real Slim Shady please stand up?
Entered her small diner in Chicago. And what he did there will shock you. This surprise appearance is making a lot of people wonder, what exactly was he doing in the area? Well, join us as we explore this thrilling and inspiring story. Millie was a 25-year-old whose days were never normal. They were filled with half her customers, insulting he for being slow and even incompetent. And the only reason she still had customers was because her meals were delicious. So no matter how long it took to make them, and no matter how long customers had go wait, it ended up being worth it.
I don't mean to be a bitch, but the last 4 times we've come here, the food was awful.
Well, I apologize for the food the last few times, and we will certainly do our best to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
But that didn't stop the customers from being angry and lashing out at her. Imagine hurrying to get to work, and you have a boss who is tougher than adamantium and would give you a hard time for coming in late, only for you to get into such a slow-moving diner. But what makes Millie's diner so slow? Is it that she really is incompetent? Well, that's the part that you never could have foreseen. Millie inherited her diner from her grandfather. She was struggling to stay afloat, and as such, she couldn't afford to employ the help she needed, leaving her understaffed. Plus, her kitchen equipment was probably as old as she was, which meant a lot of them were faulty or couldn't handle a lot of work. Still, she put in her best, never letting that stop her. And in the long run, it can be said that she made the right choice. She wanted to keep the dream her grandfather passed on to her alive, and that meant making sure the restaurant survived, but that was getting harder every day. One day she was having a lot of customers during rush hour, and she was overwhelmed. There were a lot of customers, but it was particularly different because she noticed that a good number of bulked-up men in black were in the diner and outside the diner. But Millie didn't have the time or even strength to think much about it. Everything was going south, and she needed to do something about it. The ovens and fryers were malfunctioning. The grill wasn't heating properly. Her coffee machine was working either, and as though that was not enough, just after one of the huge men in black asked her what the holdup was about, the shop lost power. It was a nightmare for Millie. She grabbed onto the edge of the counter, bit her lips together in anger. Everyone could see that she was holding in frustration and rage, but didn't want to let it out. "You have to let it go," a voice said to her, and she looked up. There he was. The legend she had never even dreamt of seeing, Eminem. She looked at him, not recognizing him instantly. She couldn't still say anything, not because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't risk crying like a child out there in the open. We've all had that situation, where we're upset, and once we open our mouth to tell someone about it, we burst into tears. Eminem could see this. He understood her struggle. He understood trying to make something which is very hard work, even with everything against you. With a calm voice, he asked her to close for the day. That was when she opened her mouth to talk. And you won't believe what she said. She swallowed her tears and told Eminem that there was still a line and that she can't close the store when all the customers present needed to be attended to.
One ball? I closed the store. They come all the way here for one ball?
He found this even more inspiring. She was resilient, which was something he respected. She asked him what he would like, and Eminem, being a sassy savage, requested a handful of burgers and fries. She paused and looked at him with bitter eyes. She knew the point he was trying to make. There was no way she was going to make any burger or fries, let alone the amount he was ordering. She paused, and this made him ask her she wasn't preparing his order. And with a tear rolling down her cheek, she told him that he knows why. Eminem looked at her with a cold but deep stare and repeated what he said earlier. She knew he was telling her the honest truth, but sheer grit was making her not see that. One of the customers shouted from the back. He had grown impatient because the line wasn't moving. She looked Eminem straight in the eye and announced loudly for everyone to hear that the diner is closed for the day. A lot of people were happy. They had waited in line for so long only to be disappointed. He smiled at her, and she took a seat, like she had carried out her last official act and was now retired. She noticed Eminem still had that smirk on his face, so she asked him if he was now happy. Nothing could have prepared her for his answer. You wouldn't believe it. He said yes, and that she needed to reset, and that he was her reset button. She didn't understand what he was saying and wasn't in the mood for riddles, both of which she expressed to him. He then took a napkin on the countertop and pulled out a pen. What Eminem wrote down will shock you. He pushed the napkin to her, and when she asked what it was, he said that was the amount he was loaning her to renovate her restaurant. She pulled the napkin and saw the number, and her jaw dropped. She didn't know what to say, but she didn't want a loan. She could have gotten a loan from a bank if she wanted to, but she didn't want a loan.
But we needed a completed application with a bank loan by today.
She was nearly offended. That was when she confessed to knowing Eminem, asking him if he thought she didn't know who he was. But he wasn't done. He said it wasn't just any loan, that he was going to come back to check in on her business 2 years, and if the restaurant had made more than the loan he was offering her, then she wouldn't need to pay it back. It was a twist and a challenge. Millie couldn't believe her eyes or what she was hearing. She asked if he was serious, and he confirmed. Tears flowed from her eyes as she said that with the right equipment and staff, that she would surpass that number with ease in the first year. Eminem chuckled, called her cocky, and gave her his number while also writing her a check of the amount he wrote on the napkin. But Millie was smart. She wanted their deal in writing. Eminem laughed, saying he knew he picked a real one, and asked her to get a lawyer to draw up the paperwork. He was in town for the next 2 days, that he would be happy to sign it. Now, you're probably wondering, why would Eminem do this? Or better still, who is Eminem, that is, for those who do not know him? Eminem, whose real name is Marshall Bruce Mathers III, is one of the most influential figures in the world of hip-hop. And like Millie, his journey wasn't smooth. He grew up in a tough part of Detroit, Michigan, facing many challenges early on. His family life was far from easy. His mother, Debbie, struggled with addiction, and his father left when Marshall was just a baby, so he never had a real father figure around. These things shaped who he became. As a child, he was often bullied at school for being different. He was smaller, quieter, and stood out as one of the few white kids in a neighborhood that had more of black people and children. This led to him feeling isolated and unsure of himself, but music became his escape. He discovered rap at a young age and was immediately drawn to it. You can say that he was fascinated by the rhythm or melody and the way words could be molded to tell stories. And he sure had a lot of stories to tell, since his life was full of them. You can say rap was Mother Nature's gift to him, like Millie's diner was a gift from her grandfather. However, the idea of a white rapper trying to break into a black-dominated genre like hip-hop was something that had not been seen or even heard of at the time, and he faced a lot of ridicule and skepticism for even trying. Despite that, Eminem didn't give up. He spent countless hours writing, practicing, and perfecting his ability. His early experiences of pain, anger, hunger, and frustration became the fuel for his lyrics. And in a world where people were feeling those emotions,
Attraction is an emotion. Emotions are not based in science.
Breaking the news, watching them cry, dealing with their emotions.
and going through that same horror, they found him to have a raw and unique voice. His talent could not be denied, but it wasn't easy for him to get noticed. Before becoming the megastar we know today, he faced numerous setbacks, which is probably one of the reasons he could relate to Millie so much. Back then, it was as though everything was against him. He released his first album, Infinite, in 1996. He had to sell copies from the trunk of his car in Detroit, but it was a commercial failure, and critics were harsh. They said he was just another wannabe, and the rejection almost made him quit. He was struggling financially, living in poverty, trying to make ends meet while supporting his daughter Haley. This personal pressure added another layer of motivation, though, because he wasn't just chasing his dreams anymore, he was fighting to provide for his child. Fatherhood has always been a huge part of Eminem's life and identity. His daughter Haley was born in 1995, and from that moment, his focus shifted. He's often said in interviews and songs that everything he does is for her. His close and longtime friend, 50 Cent, also confirmed on how Eminem,
ladies and gentlemen, 50 Cent, the musician, has returned to us. You're back.
Back?
Yes, you are.
didn't tour as much as he could because he wanted to be around for Haley. His relationship with Haley is one of the most constant themes in his music. From the beginning, he was determined to give her a better life than he had. But the road was tough. He was young, broke, and still trying to figure out who he was as a man. He wasn't always perfect, and his relationship with Haley's mother, Kim Scott, was known to be notorious and very problematic. They had a love-hate relationship that was full of fights, breakups, and makeups, and much of this can be heard in his songs because he was never ashamed to talk about them. His music became an outlet for expressing the emotional roller coaster of being a father, a partner, and a man struggling to stay afloat in a chaotic world. And even when he achieved success, his life didn't get easier right away. Fame came at a price. After Dr. Dre discovered him and helped him release the Slim Shady LP in 1999, Eminem became a name that the world could reckon with almost overnight. The album was full of controversial, dark, and often violent lyrics, which shocked many people. And many people wondered if he was saying the things he said in his songs just to get people triggered to talk about him, thereby pushing his fame. But that wasn't the reason. Eminem was speaking about his real pain, using alter egos like Slim Shady to explore parts of himself that felt broken and angry. Critics called him offensive, dangerous, and accused him of promoting violence, misogyny, and homophobia. But fans connected with his honesty. Beneath the surface, people saw a man who was just trying to survive his demons, and that vulnerability was powerful. And with that came growth in his career. Eminem's career skyrocketed, and as such, so did his personal struggles. He battled addiction to prescription drugs, which nearly destroyed him. By the mid-2000s, his life was spiraling out of control. He talked about this chaotic period of his life in his music, with albums like Encore showing a darker, more erratic side of him. He overdosed in 2007, coming terrifyingly close to death. But he pulled himself out of that hole, went to rehab, and fought hard to get clean, both for himself and for Haley. His recovery is something he's been very open about, sharing how difficult it was to rebuild his life while staying sober. That journey of overcoming addiction became another major chapter in his music. Like we stated earlier, Eminem was never afraid to talk about his struggles and demons in his music, and now he had a different story to tell of how he overcame those demons, so he began communicating those stories. Albums like Recovery showed a more mature and reflective side of Eminem. In the album, he talks about his regrets, his gratitude for second chances, and his ongoing battles with his inner demons. Throughout all of this, he refused to falter on his role as a father. He remained dedicated to his daughter. In addition to Haley, Eminem also became a father figure to two other girls, Elena, the daughter of his ex-wife's twin sister, and Stevie, Kim's daughter from another relationship. He adopted both of them, stepping up in a way his own father never did for him. His love for them is evident in many of his songs, and it's clear that despite his sometimes frantic public persona, his children are the most important thing in his life. He's said multiple times that being a father is the one role that matters most to him, even more than being a rap icon. As an artist, Eminem's influence on hip-hop is monumental. He changed the game with his technical skills, intricate rhyme schemes, and ability to blend humor, horror, and emotion in ways that no one else had done before. He's been called one of the greatest rappers of all time, and for good reason. His storytelling ability is unmatched, and he's never been afraid to speak his mind, even when it puts him in hot water. But what makes him stand out isn't just his technical prowess. It's the raw honesty he brings to his music. He's shared some of his darkest moments, from addiction to mental health struggles, and he's done so with an intensity that resonates with millions of fans around the world. Do you think Eminem did the best he could for Millie? Is he really one of the greatest rappers of all time? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.